One thing for me is the person a decent person? Are they just worth being in your life? Are they worth saying hello to, talking to, just being part of? And you are. And when I see good people, that's a blessing when you get a couple minutes with a good person, no matter what you're talking about, whether it's tennis, boxing, or just chit-chat. You know?
I really appreciate that, Teddy, and I grew up watching you work those corners, watching you talk boxing. It was one of the things that brought me into the sport and let me know that maybe I could contribute something on the microphone. So
I remember when you started, and you stayed with it. You're like a fighter that just had the desire, the passion, stayed with it, you know. You didn't know whether you were winning or losing at the beginning. All you knew was you were getting experience and you were doing what you loved.
That's right.
And it got you to where it got you, which is a good place. And it's simple. It's not a complicated formula, and you show it.
Hearing those words from you made the whole trip to Saudi worth it before they even fight steps through the ropes on Saturday night. But let's talk about that a little bit before I let you go. This 5v5 kind of format is something I don't recall seeing before in the heavy or even in the professional ranks. Have you seen anything like this?
You know, it's funny you bring it up. I mean, obviously that is the talk here, and that is the template that they put forward for this. But there's been talk for years in boxing about team boxing. They could just never really make it happen. And you know it too, if you think about it. You know, they tried that concept with LA against New York. With different cities, different states, and it never caught on. But they never took it to where they took it to the promoters, which makes the most sense because they're the ones who have the fighters. and to take it to the two biggest promoters, and there's nobody really bigger than these two guys. I mean, you got a couple other guys out there, but you're talking about the top guys who have the top fighters. So it made sense, if you're going to do this concept, go to the promoters who have the top guys and put it together. But at the end of the day, you know what, the only thing that really matters is that you have good fights, that you have fights where you could ask me, like you're doing now a little bit, who's going to win, and I could make a legitimate argument for either side. That's when you know you have good fights. And I can make a legitimate argument for, I think, every one of those fights on both sides of the scale, who could win. So, and again, boxing has become more relevant in the last year and a half. And why? Because Turki Al-Sheikh, quite frankly, someone asked me, they got mad. They actually got mad. Can you imagine getting mad at me? And they said, Teddy, how could you say that? You know Canelo, you know Fury, you know those guys are the face of boxing. No, I said Turki Al-Sheikh's the face of boxing right now, because what else would I say? I mean, at the point that he is the one that's bringing the fights that the fans want to see, and quite honestly, the fights that the sport needs to make it more relative. I thought that the 80s was the healthiest time that I had seen in a modern era, if you will. And why? Yeah, you had network television putting fights on free where you could see them in your living room. But there was another reason. Yeah, you had great legendary talent. Great. And it almost made you start to think, hey, we don't have that talent today. But we do. We do have great talent. The problem was you didn't have them fighting each other. That's why the 80s was so healthy. You had Durant fighting Leonard, fighting Hearns, fighting Hagler. You had Pernell Whitaker, Benitez. Just throw them all in it. They were all fighting each other. And that's what made the sport so healthy. And right now, the sport kind of needed a doctor. I didn't know the doctor was going to come from the Middle East, but we're getting what we need. We're just, again, I said about you, simple formula. You put the best fighters in with the best, the fans will be happy, the sport will be better off.
I said the same thing just yesterday, that the last golden era of boxing, especially for the heavyweights, was that era, the 80s or maybe early 90s, and we didn't know if we'd see it again. We thought that these guys maybe didn't have the talent to create this 100%. Kind of rivalry, but because they're now fighting each other, we'll be able to weed out the ones who are in the very top echelon of the heavyweight division, and they're showing us stuff that we didn't expect to see. Joseph Parker with 2 wins over 2 giants. No one could have seen that or expected to see those fights without Turki Al-Sheikh having put that card together. And now the question is, with Oleksandr Usyk reigning as undisputed heavyweight champion right now, do you see anybody in the heavyweight division that can take him down?
Father Time. He's tough. He's tough Father Time. Listen, I picked Usyk to win that fight. it was very hard to pick. Very hard, because Tyson Fury is tremendous. And not just tremendous because he's a huge man who's very athletic, but also we talk about Usyk because of his will. We got to talk about Tyson Fury for the same reason. Not only his skill level, but his will. His will to come back when he was in the pitfalls of life, when he was thinking about doing something that's unthinkable. The greatest gift in the world is the gift of life. And he was actually thinking about giving it up, and he came back from that. Any man who's strong enough to come back from that can come back from that. And we saw him on the floor with not only the hardest puncher in the heavyweight division with Wilder for one punch, for the right hand, but one of the hardest punches in the heavyweight history of the division, and that's a big statement for me. I mean, he punches that hard with one punch. I mean, Ernie Shavers, Max Baer, your George Foreman. George Foreman could punch with either hand, but for one hand, Wilder punches as hard as anyone around in the history of the heavyweight boxing division, and he put him on the floor, and it looked like he was there for an eternity, and he got up. He got up from that. And to me, that was like a lesson to everyone in life. Because to me, boxing teaches you things. You know what it taught you? You can always get up. You can always get up in life if something happens. So when you're putting those guys together, you're putting Wilder in there now at this point with Zhang, and you have a lot of interesting things that can happen.
We heard it on the stage here today that one of these guys obviously will go on to bigger and better things if he wins, but the other one falls out of the elite, and potentially Wilder told me if he loses on Saturday night, he retires. Do you think that either Zhang or Wilder, if they lose Saturday night, are done in boxing?
I think that it's a crossroads fight for them. I think it's what common sense tells you it should be. One guy's 41, Zhang, and Wilder's 38. And they've been in a lot of tough fights. The window for this business, like anything, is only open for so long, so much. And I think that it's a reasonable thought that they've both made good money. Wilder's made a lot of money. God bless him. He's earned it. He had the heavyweight title. He had a good run. They did a really good job promoting him and letting him. I never ever poo-poo a fighter or say, a fighter's making too much money. They can't make enough for me. For me, no fighter can make enough when I know what they put on the line every time they get in that ring. So he's in a position. We should celebrate, really, not the negativity. We should celebrate the positive, that he's in a position he could retire if he wanted to. Thank God for that. That this business has done that for him. That's number one. And listen, Zhang hasn't made the money he has. He's just started making money, but Zhang has done real well. They're at the point now, yes, with Father Time knocking on the door right there, waiting and looking them over a little bit. They are in a position where you have to, because where does the loser go? The loser goes a little bit in the back of the line to be what? And I hate to use this word because no one's an opponent in my view, but to be an opponent for
a gatekeeper at the best.
For the next guy. Yeah. So in that way, at the point they are in their life, what they've done in their life, especially Wilder, he's accomplished so much. Yeah, that's got to be real. And as far as Usyk, that you touched on earlier, like who can beat him? First of all, I don't want to downplay how good the heavyweight division is. There's a lot of good fighters. There's a lot of good fighters there in the heavyweight division that on any given night will do what Fury did. Put a competitive fight with any of the top guys. But I favor Usyk for the same reason I favored him when I was asked to pick a winner 2 weeks ago. And it was very hard. Some of the physical parts even leaned towards Fury. But the thing that made me pick Usyk was there's certain things, certain metrics, certain measurables that like reach and speed and power and chin, but there's certain measurables that can't be measured in a tangible way. And you know what? Usyk had one of those measurables, and you know what it was? His ability to find a way to win.
Can he take that big right hand from Wilder? I mean, he's a smaller heavyweight. We know styles make fights.
Want a trainer to answer that, from a trainer point?
Yeah.
I hope he don't. In other words, as a trainer, you want him to avoid it.
Yeah.
No, but I'm being serious. I remember Customado, my mentor. I thought the greatest boxing mind of all time. There's a lot of great boxing minds out there, but I'm prejudiced. He was mine, and he was like a father figure. And I spent 8 years with him. But I remember one time they asked him about a heavyweight. Well, do you think he's got a great chin? And you know or good chin. And you know his answer was? It was the greatest answer. He goes, I hope I never find out. Because we want him to do this. But look, he already took the right uppercut in the end of the sixth. It was at the end of the round. I get it, and it shook him a little bit. But so we could look at that as an advantage for Fury. Say, hey, Fury caught him with that right uppercut at the end of the sixth, and it shook him. No doubt about it. Fury's terrific, no doubt about it. But we could also look at the end I was talking about and say, what did he do in the seventh? What did he do in the eighth? What did he do? He showed again that ability that's not as measurable as we like, as we're comfortable measuring the neon talents, the talents that jump out at you, the power, the speed, the scintillating things. But just how about the ability, like you, the ability to be dependable? No, seriously, the ability to be consistent, the ability to be able to rely on in tough times. That's what Usyk has. That's what won the fight for him. That's
Incredible.
a talent.
The father time that defeats everyone in the sports game, and no matter what the industry is, has been knocking on the door for some time with Mike Tyson. But now we've seen that he's had some medical emergency in this guy. We know that fight is coming up. Do you think that that's any indication that he's not ready, or that maybe this fight is not a great idea?
I'm not to judge that. You know who has to judge that? Mike. Mike and the people that love him around him. You know, he's had a great career, youngest heavyweight of all time, Kid Dynamite on Sports Illustrated cover. He's had a great career. He's iconic. He's in some ways he's bigger than he was when he was young. I mean, he's had a great renaissance, if you will, of coming back where he's been able to make money and he's been able, from what we can see from the outside, have a good life. I just wish him well. I just wish that he makes the decision that he needs to make for himself. Only he knows how healthy he is. Only he knows why he has to do this. Only he knows what we talk about. Father time knocking on the door. Well, other things knock on the door too. You know, certain things knock on your door privately in the middle of the night.
Like what?
Like things that you have to prove to yourself, or things that still bother, or things that still knock at your door, things that you still have to answer, things that you need to satisfy to be comfortable. You know, it's one thing to exist in life, to go around and you got a heartbeat, you got a pulse, you know, your blood pressure's good, you're making money, you're doing okay. But it's another thing to live the life you want to live. Even at 58, who says Mike Tyson doesn't have the right to live the life that he wants to live? That maybe there's as much as he's done so many great things, maybe there's something that we don't understand that is knocking on his door that's telling him this is important for me.
And lastly, Teddy, when we see, from the trainer's perspective, when we see the mitt work online that's gotten so much attention that Mike's doing, obviously it's more than any average man can do, but does that give us an indication of what he's able to do in the ring? How do you see the fight unfolding, and what can we take from what we're looking at online?
Shoot it down the middle, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm right. You can hate me, go ahead, do whatever. You hate me, some people like me a little bit, thank you, I appreciate it very much. But it's going to be my truth, what I believe is the truth. It's one thing to hit someone, there ain't no one hitting back. You know what I mean? When you're a certain athlete, when you have those quick twitch fibers, muscles, and you're of a certain stature that the ordinary person will never realize, never come close to being able to realize. When you're at that stature, no matter how far away it was, you still have, you could be a baseball player that's 58 and you get in a batting cage. What do you think the guy's going to look like? He's going to look pretty good in a batting cage. Yeah. Think about it. Even though he's if Ted Williams was still alive, you know, Willie Mays, God bless him, Hank Aaron, Mickey Mantle, if they wouldn't have batted, well, Mickey had bad knees, so maybe not. But you know what I'm saying?
Understand.
You'd still say, oh, whoa, you know. So that could be deceiving. Yeah, that looks great, and yeah, it's real. He can still punch. Look, your reflexes will go with time. Your speed will be eroded with time. Your timing will go out the window with time. But power will always stay there. George Foreman proved that, unfortunately, against my fighter. And I love George still. But I wish you didn't do that, George, but George is a special man and a great man. And look what he did late in his career when everyone thought it was over. All I'm saying is that when you see those videos, yeah, the guy was a great athlete, a great fighter. Yeah, he can still, for a certain amount of time, right now, with nobody hitting back, we don't know yet. Maybe a dude was throwing hitting back too. Yes, maybe. But right now, he can still, I would expect him to be, because he was that elite of a talent that he should be able to do that, and if it's legitimate, if it's not prearranged. I don't know what it is, but if it is legitimate, if it's not prearranged, if they're going to go out there and give it the old college try, like they say, right? Yeah, the first couple minutes could be a little risky for Paul, with a guy that was the youngest heavyweight champ, one of the hardest punches, combined with speed, one of the greatest combinations of speed and power in the history of the heavyweight division. With him for 1 or 2 rounds, could it be a little hairy? Yeah, it could be a little hairy.
And then after that?
Well, I mean, if you don't catch him or you don't hurt him, and then the gas tank starts to putter, if that was to happen, then the younger man would have the advantage, you would think. Even the younger man who's far, far less accomplished, obviously in the game. But you got to give Paul credit. He didn't disrespect. People say, Teddy, you're supposed to hate Paul. And I'm looking at him like, why should I hate anyone? Number one, you got a problem. You hate? What for? Why? What's that going to do for me and my family? For what reason? Number one. And number two, why should I hate somebody that had an idea, and it's the American way? He had an idea, he had a vision, and he took that idea and vision, and he's making money with it. And he didn't disrespect my sport or our sport. He went out there, he got in the gym for the last few years, and he's learning the sport. He got trainers, and he's working his backside off to try to be the best boxer he can be. Should I hate him for that? And that he took an idea that he had 20 million followers or whatever the number was on YouTube, and he took it to this place? No.
That's well said, Teddy. And some things don't fall to Father Time, but get better with time, just like wine. You have aged incredibly well. Your wisdom continues to be absolutely bottomless, and I really appreciate the kind words you have for me. It means a lot to me. Even got me a little choked up, so I can't tell you how much that means, coming from a legend, someone that really inspired me in the sport and made me think that maybe this kind of career was possible. Radio Rahim with none other than the legend himself, Teddy Atlas. Thank you so much, Teddy. I really appreciate it.